Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any video lesson from Rouse IAS Study Circle. Join the official Telegram channel of Rouse IAS Study Circle to stay updated and get all the materials on the Telegram. The link to the channel can be found in the description box. Prelims 2021 is just around the corner, and I'm sure your preparation must be going on in full swing. However, a proper evaluation is also necessary, and it is in this regard Rouse IAS Study Circle has come up with Pre-2021 Pareekshan All India Mock Test. So, the first test of Pre-2021 Pareekshan will be held from 19 to 21st of March, and the result for the same will be announced on 22nd of March. Now, the important highlights for Pre-Pareekshan 2021 conducted for GS Paper 1 would be that you will be provided an All India ranking, whereby you can assess your preparation and also evaluate your performance in different subjects. You will be provided question level analysis to identify strong and weak areas, and this will help you in your overall preparation and also prepare you for the D-Day. It will provide you a comparative analysis, especially providing you the top score, average score, and also your performance. And there will also be a live online test discussion for the Pre-Pareekshan 2021. Now, another important feature of Pre-Pareekshan 2021 is that the test will provide 100% scholarship for PTS, that is Prelims Test Series, and QIP, that is Quality Improvement Program 2021, for the top 50 test takers. And it will also provide 50% scholarship for Prelims Test Series and QIP 2021 for next 100 test takers. So, the Pre-Pareekshan 2021, which is an All India mock test, shall be conducted in an online format. Members of eLearn, that is those students who have registered themselves on eLearn platform, need not register again, as the test will be available on your feed wall. For those who are still not a member, please register yourself on the eLearn platform. The registration link has been provided in the description to this particular video. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper reading from our UPSC examination perspective. Now today let us discuss the important news which has appeared in the New Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 14th March 2021. The news to be discussed has been displayed on your screen, and timestamping for the same has been provided in the description box below. So on this note, let's start our today's discussion from our examination perspective. Now let's take up this particular news appearing on page number 8. It says, Reaffirm 1991 Act on Places of Worship. CPIM voices concerns over Supreme Court notice. The Supreme Court of India has asked the central government to respond to a petition which has challenged the special law, namely the Places of Worship Special Provisions Act 1991. So this particular legislation has been challenged in the Supreme Court of India, and accordingly the Supreme Court of India has asked the central government to respond to this particular petition, especially regarding enactment of this legislation, namely the Places of Worship Special Provisions Act 1991. Now this act becomes important because it freezes the status of places of worship as it was on 15th August 1947. Now the point to be understood here is that this particular act came into effect in 1991, and the act provides for a cut-off date of 15th August 1947. And the preamble to this act says that an act to prohibit the conversion of any place of worship and to provide for the maintenance of religious character of any place of worship as it existed on the 15th day of August 1947. And the fact that this act shall not apply to Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid, situated in Ayodhya in the state of Uttar Pradesh. So the provisions of this particular legislation highlighted, especially section 3 and section 4 of the act, stated that the religious character of a place of worship shall continue to be the same as it was on August 15, 1947. So basically, this act barred or prohibited conversion of any place of worship to another religious denomination. And no person shall convert any place of worship of any religious denomination into one of a different denomination or section. So basically the legislation froze the date of 15th August 1947 and stated that the religious character of a place of worship shall continue to be the same as it was on 15th August 1947. So effectively it barred religious conversion of places of worship. Further, Section 4 Clause 2 highlights that all suits, appeals or other proceedings regarding converting the character of a place of worship that was pending on August 15, 1947 will stand abated. That is, it prevents the petitioner from moving forward with respect to any appeal under these provisions when the Act commences and no fresh proceedings can be filed. However, legal proceedings can be initiated with respect to conversion of the religious character of any place of worship after the commencement of the Act if the change of status of any religious place of worship has taken place after the cutoff date of 15th August 1947. So effectively we see that this Act places a cutoff date of 15th August 1947 and barred any conversion of religious places of worship. So a petition has been filed in the Supreme Court stating that the provisions of this particular legislations are arbitrary, irrational and retrospective, as the cutoff date of 15th August 1947 bars Hindus, Jains, Buddhists and Sikhs from approaching the courts to reclaim their places of worship which were invaded and encroached upon by fundamentalist barbaric invaders. So basically the constitutional validity of this particular legislation has been challenged in the Supreme Court. Also because of the fact the legislation bars judiciary from entertaining any dispute raised over places of worship that existed on 15th August 1947. And it is in this regard the Supreme Court has sought centre's response. Now since the matter is sub judice, let's wait for the final judgment of the Supreme Court including the opinion presented by the central government. So from your examination point of view, you should know about this particular legislation, namely the Places of Worship Special Provisions Act 1991. The fact that this legislation does not apply to Ram Janmabhoomi Babri Masjid area in Ayodhya, and also the fact that it provides for a cutoff date of 15th August 1947. Now regarding criticism to this particular legislation, the first criticism is that it violates secularism as provided under the Constitution of India. Another criticism is that the cutoff date of 15th August 1947 is arbitrary and irrational. And since the cutoff date has been decided as 15th August 1947 in 1991 because the legislation was enacted in 1991, so it can be said that the status quo which was determined by the colonial powers has been considered final. And another criticism is that centre has no power to legislate on pilgrimages and burial grounds as these are under state list. Pilgrimages has been mentioned under entry 7 of state list, whereas burial grounds and cremation grounds has been mentioned under entry 10 of state list. Now another important aspect is that this particular legislation, namely the Places of Worship Special Provision Act 1991, was made when P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister of India. Now aspects pertaining to secularism, especially with respect to the legislation of Places of Worship Act 1991, can be asked in your prelims and also in your mains examination. In the prelims, this topic gets covered under Indian polity and governance, and in the mains can be asked with respect to special features of the Indian Constitution, especially secularism. So on this note, let us revise some of the important aspects of secularism, especially provided under the Constitution of India from our previous DNS. Now generally, when we talk about secularism, we simply mean that equality for all religions or the freedom for citizens to practice any religion of their choice without any state control or without any state intervention. So when we talk about secularism, there are certain aspects which becomes important. For example, freedom to practice any religion of choice, state treating all religion equally without discrimination, no domination of any single religion with respect to political, social or economic aspects of life, state not interfering in religious practice or choice of citizens. Further, there should be no religious persecution of minorities in any given country. And state should not have any formal or legal alliance with any religion. So these can be said to be an aspect of secularism. Now the question here is that is the secularism practiced in India any different from that practiced in the Western world, including United States of America? So the Indian aspect of secularism is deep rooted within these provisions of the Indian Constitution, namely equality, that is, all religions shall be treated equally. There shall not be any discrimination based on any religion as described in Article 15. Now, Article 21 calls for right to life and personal liberty without any discrimination. And Article 25 and 26 provides for freedom of religion as a part of fundamental right. So all these aspects becomes important to understand the Indian version of secularism. Now here another point to be understood is that the provisions of Constitution of India, especially with respect to equality, against discrimination, and with respect to freedom of conscience, free profession, practice and propagation of religion, is in line with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, mainly with respect to Article 2, which talks about the fact that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Similarly, Article 7 of UDHR mentions that all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law, something as similar to Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. And Article 2 of UDHR is almost similar to Article 15 of the Indian Constitution. And Article 18 of UDHR is almost similar to Article 25 as well as 26 of the Indian Constitution, as Article 18 of UDHR says that everyone has a right to freedom of thought, conscience as well as religion. And it is here where Article 25 and 26 with respect to Indian Constitution becomes extremely important to understand the Indian context of secularism. Now it talks about the fact that there is freedom of conscience and free profession, practice and propagation of religion. So three aspects are highlighted here. However, the article starts with the fact that subject to public order, morality and health and to other provisions of this part, all persons are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess, practice and propagate religion. So we understand that this aspect of freedom of conscience and free profession, practice and propagation of religion is subject to public order, morality as well as health. So a state can regulate certain aspects of religion based on public order, morality as well as health. And similar provisions has been provided in Article 26, which mentions about freedom to manage religious affairs. It again says that subject to public order, morality as well as health, every religious denomination or any section of it shall have the right for the following. These rights are with respect to establish and maintain institutions for religious and charitable purposes, to manage its own affairs in matters of religion, to own and acquire movable and immovable property, and to administer such property in accordance with law. However, again, the state can regulate these aspects provided in Article 26 with respect to public order, morality, as well as health. Now, in this context, let us understand the Western concept of secularism. Now, with respect to Western concept, which is also practiced in the United States or also referred as the American model, it refers to mutual exclusion of religion and state. So, the activities and jurisdiction of religion and state are totally different and they do not interfere into each other's business. So, as per the Western concept of secularism, state and religion will not intervene in each other's activity or business. Both state and religion will have independent spheres of activity and jurisdiction. Policy of a state cannot have religious rationale. Religious classification cannot be the basis of any public policy. State cannot aid any religious institutions. State cannot provide financial support to educational institutions run by religious groups. And such a concept has no place for state-supported religious reform. So these were some of the important highlights with respect to secularism as provided in the Constitution of India. So with this revision, let's move to the next article. The next news to be discussed appears on page number 11 in the science section. It says, Martian blueberries find a parallel on Earth, namely in the Kutch region of Gujarat in India. It says that similar hematite concentrations have been found in Kutch in Gujarat. Now this news highlights about a semblance of environmental conditions present in Kutch and that of Mars. Now, regarding the environment of Mars, this news highlights about NASA's rover Opportunity, which has been collecting sediments from Mars since 2004, whereby it found small spheres of rocks which were referred as Martian Blueberries. Now, these small spheres of rocks were made of iron oxide compounds known as hematites, and this hematite has given Mars its red hue or its red color. Now, there are different types of iron oxide, and one of the best example of iron oxide can be rust. So you must know that how rust is formed. Iron reacts with water and oxygen to form hydrated iron oxide or rust, and this happens due to corrosion of iron. Now, since hematites have been found on Mars, so scientists believe that there must have been an environment of oxygen and that of water on Mars, as hematites on Earth are found near hot springs or near pool of water. So scientists believe that presence of hematites on Mars indicates presence of water and presence of oxygen. And it is this hematite which has given Mars its red color or its red hue. Now, regarding the similarity between Mars and Kutch, this news highlights about certain research. So, Dr. Ray from Planetary Sciences Division of Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad has been studying these hematite concretions in Kutch, and his recent paper notes that the blueberries in India, that is the hematites in India and Mars, share similar characteristics. It further says that the team has also been studying about the Jeevan formation in Gujarat, which is between 145 and 201 million years old. Now, this Jeevan formation is characterized by conspicuous black shales alternating with thin to thick bedded siltstones and sandstones. So, the Jeevan formation can be associated with formation of black shale, siltstone, and sandstone. It further says that detailed geochemistry and spectroscopic investigations of these hematite concretions in the Kutch area revealed that they resemble the hematites which have been found on Mars, as they have similar morphology, that is, they are spherical in shape, often doublet and triplet, and also have similar mineralogy, that is, they comprises of a mixture of hematite and geothite. Now, this research have also highlighted or shown that the Kutch area is potential Martian analog locality. That is, the way environment has changed on Kutch is the same way environment had changed on Mars. And it is in this regard a 2016 paper argued that occurrence of these hydrous sulfate in the Matanumad area of Kutch resemble the Martian surficial processes. It further argues that transformation from the wet and humid to dry and arid environment on Mars is mimicked by the history of Kutch. That is, Kutch also experienced the same transformation from a wet climate to humid climate to a dry and arid environment or a dry and arid climate. Now, I have taken this extract from the research paper which mentions about geological map of Kutch showing various outcrops of Mesozoic formations and Deccan traps, and here you can see the Jeevan formation. So these are the Jeevan formation found in the Kutch area of Gujarat, and as per this research paper, these Jeevan formations resemble that of Mars. Further, the researchers or the scientists have also explained that there may be several other localities in Kutch area which share similar geologic history of the surface to near surface processes that appears to be similar to ancient Mars. And here the scientist says that the concretions in the Jeevan formation of Kutch represents another data point that reinforces the need to use the Kutch area for further analog studies of the Martian surface. So the research papers are trying to find similarities in the Kutch area with respect to the changing atmosphere of Mars. So this article on hematites becomes important both from your prelims and mains point of view. In the prelims, it gets covered under general science, and in the mains, gets covered under GS paper 3, especially regarding awareness in the fields of space. Now the next news to be discussed appears on page number 9. It says framework for testing water launched. Center caps tariffs to ensure that they remain within the reach of common man. Now, this particular article talks about the recently released Water Quality Management Information System of Jal Jeevan Mission. This news says that the Union Minister has released drinking water quality testing, monitoring and surveillance framework and also launched the Water Quality Management Information System of Jal Jeevan Mission. Now, the Water Quality Management Information online portal and mobile app has a full automated data management related to water quality. And now citizens can get the water quality in their taps tested at reasonable rates. So, the drinking water quality testing, monitoring and surveillance framework and guidelines mandate a network of National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories, that is NABL laboratories. So, the lab to test the quality of water has to be accredited to NABL and has to be established in every state, district and block over the next few years. The news further says that at the panchayat level, teams of women in the village water and sanitation committees will be given field testing kits. And of the rupees 3.6 lakh crores for Jal Jeevan Mission budget, 2% have been earmarked for quality monitoring of tap water to ensure Har Ghar Jal. So it is in this regard the Union Minister of Jal Shakti has stated that Har Ghar Jal is not just a one-time infrastructure creating program, and it will go a long way in building the capacity of frontline workers, empowering women and creating employment in villages. Now, regarding the testing of water, it says that the suggested tariffs would allow one to test a water sample's pH level, turbidity, alkalinity and hardness of water for rupees 50. Further, if someone wants to test the chloride, sulfate or iron in the water, then such test would cost rupees 50 each. While test for more dangerous elements like arsenic, fluoride, nitrate or coliform bacteria would cost rupees 100 each. And a package for all the 16 water quality parameters would cost rupees 600. So we see that the center has capped the pricing with respect to testing the quality of water with respect to different impurities. It further says that the turnaround time for chemical test should not be more than 24 hours, while testing for the biological contaminants will produce results within 48 hours. So this is with respect to testing about the quality of drinking water. Now, if you can see in this particular picture, it says that boron in water affects the nervous system, mercury in water affects brain and nervous system, chloride in water together with sodium causes increase in blood pressure, lead hinders physical and mental growth of children, causes anemia and damages kidneys in adults. It further says that nitrate causes blue baby syndrome in infants, and pesticides causes cancer, damage to nervous system and reproductive system, and also severely damages immune system. Now, excessive calcium in water causes constipation and kidney stones. Fluoride in water causes discoloration and damage of teeth. Presence of excessive sodium in water causes more damage to people who already suffer from diseases of heart, kidney and blood circulation. Presence of excessive iron causes aggravation in diseases of stomach. Presence of sulfate along with magnesium causes diarrhea. Presence of cadmium causes adverse effect on bones. Presence of arsenic causes skin diseases and cancer. And presence of fluoride causes fluorosis, deformities in bones and problems in joints. So these are some of the problems associated with presence of different elements or presence of different impurities in water. Now, this news becomes important both from your prelims and mains point of view. In the prelims, this topic gets covered under general science and also under the aspect of governance. Now, in the mains, this topic gets covered under GS paper 2 under governance and in GS paper 3 with respect to environment and technology.
There is an article on the science and tech page of today's newspaper, Optical Monitoring of Power Line Health. Monitoring of the health of power line, the transmission line, is extremely important. You know, India's national grid is the largest power transmission grid in the world. India's northern grid, western grid, southern grid, eastern grid and northeastern grid, they are connected to one another. So electrical fault at any point in the transmission line in the entire country will affect the power transmission throughout the nation. Further, in 2015, we got into an agreement of SARC electricity grid. where power-rich countries, Nepal, Bhutan, they will be able to transmit power to India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. If at supranational level we are doing power transmission, then the health of the transmission line becomes quintessential. There shouldn't be any unplanned power fault. Additionally, it has been pointed out that now when the demand for energy is growing, the modern power transmission system, they are going to work at steady state stability, or they are going to work at the saturation level, which means that the chances of electrical fault will increase multiple fold. And that again becomes a very important reason for continuous real-time monitoring of power transmission cables, so that whenever such a fault occurs, it can be identified quickly and fixed. We have a vision of 24/7 power to all by 2022. But however, a recent report on the success of Saubhagya Yojana has said that about half of the rural population across 6 states in India have reported at least 2 days of 24-hour-long unpredictable blackouts every month. This is over and above the planned load shedding. In the current time when dependence on internet, on electricity is so high, you understand what happens when there is long unpredictable blackouts. The electrical system will fail sometimes, but the thing is the maintenance of the electrical system that has to be so strong. Whenever there is a blackout, whenever there is a fault in the system, it must be fixed quickly. And for that we need real-time monitoring of power transmission line. So for that purpose, researchers at IIT Madras have demonstrated that by using Raman thermometry on the optic fiber cables, they can achieve monitoring of power transmission cables. To begin to understand this concept of monitoring of power transmission cables, we'll first see what Raman thermometry is. And to understand Raman thermometry, we'll begin from the basic of understanding Raman effect. See, when a light beam is incident on a material, the molecules of the material, it scatters the light. Bulk of the scattered light will have the same frequency as that of the incident light. But there will be some amount of scattered light that will have higher frequency than the incident light, and some will have lower frequency than the incident light. This phenomena was unknown to the world until Dr. C.V. Raman discovered it. This phenomena came to be called as Raman effect, and for the discovery of this, Dr. C.V. Raman was awarded Nobel Prize in Physics in 1930. He was the first man to get Nobel Prize in Asia in any area of science. And the day this effect was discovered, 28th February, is celebrated as National Science Day in India. In one of his sea journey, he observed the magnificent blue color of the Mediterranean Sea. Back then, the scientific community thought that the blue color of the sea is the reflection of the color of the sky. But Dr. C.V. Raman knew that the sky is actually void and the water is colorless. Then why the color in the ocean and the sea seems blue? Then later he realized and showed to the world that the water molecules, H2O molecules of water, they scatter the light. The light coming into the water, they get scattered, and then there is change in the wavelength and hence the frequency of the light. So water molecules, like all other molecules, they create new light of new frequency, but the percentage of that is very, very small. And then the blue light created is scattered the most, it reaches our eye, and hence the water seems blue. So in nutshell, this is what Raman effect is. When a ray of light is incident on material, the molecules of the material will create new colored light. Some part of it will have energy higher than the incident light, some part of it will have energy lower than the incident light, but very small percentage. If you want an intuitive feel of this phenomena as to why this is happening, it is not very difficult to feel it. If you imagine the light as particle, then on being incident on any material, there will be collision with the molecules of that material. On collision, there will be energy exchange. You can have a situation in that energy exchange where energy will be given from the light to the molecule. And in that case, the energy of the scattered light will be lesser than the energy of incident light. And it can happen the other way around as well. Energy can be given from the molecule of the material to photon, light, which will make the energy of the scattered light more than that of incident light. And you know, frequency of any radiation is dependent on its energy. If the frequency is high like this radiation, then the energy will be high. Energy is directly proportional to frequency. Using this Raman effect, now we have something called as Raman thermometry. As we have just discussed, when a ray of light is incident on a material, frequency of the scattered light could be lower or it could be higher than the original frequency. But the thing is, the lower frequency component of the scattered light is strongly dependent on temperature of the material. So by measuring the intensity of the lower frequency scattered light, we can estimate the temperature of the material. This is the principle of Raman thermometry. If the temperature of the material is very high, that means the molecule of that material is having high motion. That means more energy will be absorbed by the material and intensity of the scattered light with lower energy will be higher. Fine. Any problem? So far things are easy and it will remain easy right till the end. Now let's come to the beginning from where we began. We began to say that Raman thermometry on the fiber optic cable can be used to monitor the power transmission cable's health. See, the thing is, the internet that you're able to use, they are brought to you by the power transmission line. There is no separate infrastructure, there is no separate grid for the fiber optic cable which are used for internet and communication. The same transmission line which is bringing power to you is also bringing internet to you. The very top cable in the high voltage transmission line actually has optical fiber. They are called as optical ground wire. Ground wire because they are used for the purpose of earthing in case there is lightning. So actually in this upper part of the transmission line, there are two wires. You have optical cables as you see here, and you also have conductors which act as lightning conductors. And below this top wire, you have other wires which are used for power transmission. The purpose of the optical wire is of course communication, but communication could also be for the purpose of other than internet. Communication is also done for the purpose of control and protection of transmission line. For example, suppose you have to turn on a circuit breaker. Then using these optical fibers, such communications are done. And these optical fibers of course can also be done for voice or data communication. So the thing is that the internet which is coming to us is coming via the same infrastructure from which the power transmission is being done. And from here you yourself will start connecting the dots. The glass fibers, the optical fibers are already there in the transmission line. And one or two of them which remain unused, not used for communicating with circuit breakers or other transmission line assets, they can be used to keep tab on the health of the power cables. Optical fiber presently is used for communication, but the idea here is to use them to keep tab on the health of the power cables. How? See, any current flowing through a conductor will cause a temperature rise. You know that because of the Joule heating effect or simply the ohmic heating. Whenever electricity flows through a conductor, it heats up the conductor. That is called as ohmic loss. If it heats up the conductor, it is also going to heat up the glass fiber. So if we do a temperature measurement of the glass fiber in a distributed manner, then indirectly we'll come to know the health of the transmission line. And if there is any problem, then we will also know the exact location of the problem. See, if the optical fiber and the transmission line, they are going together, and if suppose a fault is going to happen at this point, when the current will surge, the ohmic loss will be high, the heating effect will be high, and that will heat up the surrounding area, including the optic fiber. Now the idea is, from this end, a pulse of light will be sent to the optic fiber. Light will be sent into optic fiber, but because of heating, because of environmental disturbance, parameters of the optic fiber at this point would have been changed. The optical length will change, the diameter will change, refractive index will change, and these things will impact the backscattered light, its intensity, its other optical parameters like phase, and most importantly, frequency. Previously we have seen whenever a light is incident on material, there is some portion of light which is highly temperature dependent and the frequency of that is lower than the original frequency. When this portion will get heated up because of fault, the temperature will increase. and the intensity of the backscattered light, meaning the scattered light that will return back, having frequency lower than the original frequency, will become very high. Ideally, this signal will not come because ideally none of the section of optical fiber will get too much heated up. It is only in the incident of a fault when there will be surge of current, when the ohmic loss will increase. Then because of heating, change in frequency of the light will become high. So when current is about to getting surged and the fault is about to happen, you can know that ahead of time. And in that small amount of time that you will be ahead of the fault, either you can stop the fault, or if that was not possible, then still you can know where the fault has occurred and go and fix it. How will you know where the fault has occurred? The time that the backscattered radiation has taken to come to you. From the moment you have entered a pulse of light and the time that it has taken for the backscattered light to be detected by a detector here, that will give you the distance. Distance is speed into time. Speed will be fixed of all radiation, whether lower frequency or higher frequency. But the time it has taken for the detector to detect a light of much lower frequency, that time multiplied by the speed which is known will give you the distance. Once you know the distance, physical location of that fault will be known. You can quickly dispatch the technician and get the fault fixed. Alternatively, the technique which is presently used to monitor the health of the transmission line is thermal camera, which basically maps up the temperature. So if a part is getting overheated, then that is a possible site of a fault. But that has to be done manually and is cumbersome. And most importantly, it cannot be done in real time. Whenever there is maintenance scheduled, the technician will take the camera and run through the transmission line. But this method that we have done will be automatic, will be in real time. And most importantly, the optical fiber cables, they are already laid down along with the transmission line. But none of the optic fiber cable presently are used for power monitoring. The purpose of both the power line and the optic fiber line are separate. It's just that we have to use one or two optic fiber cable and that can monitor the health of the power cable. It is rightly said that most innovation involves doing the things we do every day a little bit better, rather than creating something completely new and different. This article is from page number 7. Gregarious bamboo flowering in Wayanad poses threat. See, there are over 1500 species of bamboo known till date, and they all have different flowering habits and flowering intervals. Largely because the flowering intervals of bamboo can be spreaded over several decades, sometimes 20 to 120 years. But even so, the different intervals of flowering can be categorized into 3 categories. One is continuous flowering or annual flowering. One category is sporadic flowering, and the third category, based on which the article is, gregarious flowering. Continuous or annual flowering happens mostly in herbaceous bamboos, bamboos which are not woody. But in some cases it happens in woody bamboos as well, but rarely. Annual flowering does not have any effect on the plant itself, meaning the plant shows no tendency to die out. But then the seeds, they are rarely viable. The seedling very seldom survive. Sporadic flowering in bamboo is exactly what the name is suggesting. It is sporadic, without any fixed interval. And they are mostly induced by environmental factors, like pest or disease, some kind of injury, malnutrition, or for long periods if there are droughts and floods. In fact, it can also happen in response of heavy exploitation. So as a reactionary mechanism, the plant starts to flower and produce seeds. The obvious objective is to preserve the species. Basically, the idea is under stress they flower so that even if the plant dies, the species continues to thrive. The seedling come from the seed and the new plants are germinated. There's a third category of flowering bamboo, gregarious flowering. And this is mostly seen in woody bamboos, not herbaceous. Gregarious flowering means that all plants of a particular species flower at the same time, regardless of their geographical location or climatic condition. The peculiar thing about gregarious flowering is, after flowering, the plant dies in few years. The actual gregarious flowering phenomena happens simultaneously all over the world, and it continues for a few years until the entire forest, the bamboo area, is dead. The cause of gregarious flowering is not known yet, and unlike sporadic flowering, it is not triggered by environmental condition. Scientists presently believe that there exists some sort of genetic alarm clock in each bamboo cell that signals the diversion of all energy to the flower production and the seed production. And this diversion of energy towards flower and seed production causes stopping of vegetative growth, and hence the plant die. The exact mechanism within the plant for this, and even the timing or the evolutionary cause for this, largely remains a mystery. But there are two things. Even after gregarious flowering, the original plant dies, but it creates a condition of profuse natural regeneration because enormous amount of seeds are produced. These seeds have no dormancy, and it helps in regermination under favorable condition, which means that the seeds and the seedlings, they have to be protected from fire and grazing. If these favorable conditions are provided, then the bamboo forest will regenerate. But there is a risk, huge risk. If the seed and seedlings are not protected, then the forest is gone. Presently, in the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, we are seeing gregarious flowering to occur, and the plants are dying like anything. Since 2010, 25% of the bamboo plant in Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary has undergone gregarious bamboo flowering. There are two reasons that have been put forward as to why the plants die after gregarious flowering. One we have already discussed. Since it requires enormous amount of energy for production of flowers and seed. Seeds have enormous amount of energy because you understand initially when the seeds does not have photosynthetic apparatus, then it is the seed that provides energy to the seedling, the young plant. So enormous amount of energy goes into the production of seed, and this diversion of energy stresses the bamboo plant so much that it actually dies. A second plausible explanation is that the mother plant is creating an optimal environment for its seedlings to survive. If the mother plant dies, then the bamboo seedlings will have full access to water, nutrient, sunlight that otherwise would not have been possible in presence of the mother plant. So after gregarious flowering, the plant dies. And there is a huge economic and ecological consequence of gregarious flowering. First of all, it disperses a huge number of seeds in the region, and that attracts rodents population. If the seeds are not protected from these rodents, the seeds are gone. After the seeds are gone, the food crops in the region will also be gone. So the forest will not be regenerated and food security of the region will be threatened. Over and above this, the rodents may also cause several diseases in the region. After gregarious flowering, the plant is going to die, and if the regeneration does not happen, then the forest resource, the bamboo used for several purposes including as building materials, that will not be available in the region. This article that appears in today's newspaper is particularly in the context of Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, which is in Kerala. It is also part of Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. Apart from Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, gregarious flowering also has been observed in Muddumalai Tiger Reserve and nearby Gudalur Forest Division in Tamil Nadu. The bamboo groves, they are the mainstay of herbivores in the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. And also, migration of wild animals from the adjacent sanctuaries from Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, that is very high in the Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. If you look in the map, this is the location of Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary. And seeing its location, you can see the importance of this sanctuary. One of the importance is the southwest monsoon winds reaches with high speed in this region. So in the summer season, the migration of wild animals in this region is high. And the bamboo groves, they are the mainstay. So if gregarious flowering is going to lead to the death of the bamboos, and if they will not be regenerated, then huge ecological, apart from economic, threat is impending.
Now, based on our discussion, this becomes your question for the day. The question is, the term Martian blueberries has been in news recently. It can be associated with options are A. NASA's rover sent on Mars, B. Viral disease occurring in Atlantic, C. Hematite rocks found on Mars, and D. None of the above. Now coming to the answer of yesterday, the question was which of the statements are correct about rare earth metals. India is the largest producer of these metals in Asia. No, this is China. Second, they are used in smartphones and automobiles. Yes, this is correct. These metals are also known as inert metals. No, this is incorrect. So the question was select the correct answer using the code given below. So here the correct answer becomes B, that is 2 only. With this we come to an end to today's discussion. Thank you.